What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to the Warframe video. So, we spent a good chunk of time today messing with Frost and Frost Prime and all that to see what's the situation with Frost in 2022. And the reason we start testing Frost is because DE did show on their dev stream yesterday this new biting Frost augment mod is going to be introduced to the game on February 9th. And this augment looks pretty cool, but the problem is it's not going to be very good. We'll go over that, and I'll talk about a solution I have to make this augment actually good and maybe breathe some new life into Frost in 2022, because we've got a long list of stuff Frost is really, really bad at, unfortunately, and not a great list of things he's good at, okay? So, this is basically a feedback video, since I did not get in the public test cluster, but I have people that I talked to that are in the public test cluster and told me how this thing works. We're going to go over my feedback on the public test cluster, specifically on this Frost mod. We're going to go over Yorelli tomorrow, potentially. Alright, so the augment mod is biting Frost. Frost gains increased critical chance and critical damage against frozen enemies. Now, when it says frozen enemies, there are actually not many things in this game that can fully freeze an enemy. You're basically looking at 3 of Frost's abilities. His first ability, an enemy stuck in his snow globe when he casts it also will get frozen, and an enemy affected by his 4th ability, Avalanche, will also be frozen. Now, there's weapons that deal cold damage in this game, but unfortunately, for Frost and this augment mod, cold procs do not fully freeze enemies, no matter what. If you get 10 cold procs on an enemy, let's see if we can get 10 here. So we have 10 cold procs, she's just really slow. Those cold procs do basically nothing besides slow enemies down. The abilities of Frost will fully freeze enemies. As you can see, she is fully frozen. The things in this game that can fully freeze enemies, basically Frost abilities, and I believe Thermal Sunder from Gauss can also freeze enemies. So, we already are in a problem where the situations where an enemy is going to be affected and get that increased crit chance and crit damage for Frost are very few and far between. Not to mention, the freezing abilities of Frost do not work on high priority targets. We're talking Demolishers in Disruption missions, Acolytes in Steel Path. Basically the enemies that you would want increased damage against, like these chonkers right here, they cannot be fully frozen. Now it would probably be a little bit OP if you could fully freeze them, but this is what I'm saying, is we don't need more damage against trash ads as Frost. We need more damage against enemies like this. There's no way you can freeze them. Frost's second ability, Ice Wave, cannot freeze enemies either. Usually it just slows enemies down. So we've come to the first problem. Additionally, let's start going over some stuff with Frost that is mega outdated, and we're going to talk about my solution to make this, basically to breathe new life into Frost, because he needs it. This is a mock-up of a future build, the empty mod slots basically for the augment when they add that. So, we've got the Arcane Frost Helmet. What this one does, it's you have to buy it basically. It gives increased ability strength and reduces your overall shields. We're going to talk about one of the big problems with Frost. It's actually going to be his 4th ability. Now, it's a decent enough skill, like AoE damage, AoE freeze. It also has built-in armor reduction. But the problem is the base value of the armor reduction is 40%. Meaning, to get full armor removal on enemies with this ability, you need 250% power strength, which is actually a lot of power strength. On this build, with the Arcane Aurora Helmet, we are basically running 2 mod spots. Keep in mind, this is an Umbral form of Frost build. You could probably do it without Umbra form, to be fair. We've also got Growing Power. So basically 3 mod spots and an Arcane Helmet to get to the value we need for full armor strip. What do you get for your full armor strip with 250% power strength? Well, unfortunately, it is going to last 8 seconds at base. So not only are you modding for 250% power strength, you're also modding for duration as well. And this does not work on high priority targets. Let me just remind you of that. Additionally, the cast speed of this ability is extremely slow, making it, basically, in my opinion, you need natural talent here too. Also, Frost's energy pool is really, really low. One of the lowest of all the prime frames. Let's just look at Saren, for example. One of the best prime frames. She's got double the energy of Frost, okay? That's without prime flow or anything like that. So, that's a problem. Additionally, while we're looking at Saren, let's see other things that Frost is worse than Saren at. He moves slower. He's got less health. He's got more shields, but the current meta of shield getting in this game is the lower the shields, the better, to be honest. So, Okay, Gaz, you're complaining a bunch about Frost. Why don't you do something about it? Well, here's what I would do to make Frost better and actually make Frost the ice overlord I think he should be. So here's DE's version of the augment right here, biting Frost only against fully frozen enemies. Here's my version of the mod and how I would make Frost a lot better. So instead of only working on fully frozen enemies, we're gonna make it where cold procs are actually useful. So Frost will gain 40% increased crit chance and crit damage per cold stat effect on the enemy, stacked up to 10 times, because you can only have 10 cold procs stacked up at any time. This means that the cold stat effect will be basically Frost's favorite thing to see. If I'm playing Frost and I'm using Biting Frost, honestly, this should probably just be his normal passive, because his passive is bad. His passive is, I believe, a 10% chance to freeze melee attackers after they strike him. So he has to take melee damage from a butcher, like that guy right there. If he hits me, 10% chance he's frozen for like 30 seconds or whatever. That's one enemy. And you have to take damage for it to actually happen. So if this was a thing, weapons like the lens would be very good on Frost, because you affect an enemy with like 4 cold procs in one shot. That means you have 80% increased crit chance and crit damage on the enemy that has cold status effects on them. This is the types of things that Frost needs, because I'm going to just go over the rest of the list of the things he's bad at. And cold damage is one of the least useful stats effects. It's basically only good against high priority targets. Now, ideally, you'd make it where 10 cold stats effects fully freeze the enemy, but this update is slated for February 9th, so I'm just trying to think of things that are less work for DE, because they have to work on the actual updates. But honestly, Frost is so outdated, I think he could use a nice little look at. He's got some really nice deluxe skins and Tenogen skins. So I think DE could make some money off of reworking Frost, honestly. As someone that I want him to be good, I'm fully aware that he is very, very outdated. The ice bubble defending the objectives, that's not been as effective for years. Basically, Gara took that away from him. Limbo is really good at it too. Remember Korra? Korra can also defend stuff too and do red crit slash procs everywhere. So let's go over some other problems with Frost. So, like I said, very low energy pool. The cold procs from his abilities don't really do much. They slow enemies down, and of course you can freeze them, but that is not tied to the cold stats at all. That's all just because of Frost's abilities. The high priority targets, basically the only enemies that you actually need this increased crit chance and crit damage against, they also can't be frozen, and his armor strip doesn't work on them either. More recent frames like Zaku and Caliban only need 200% power strength to get their full armor strip, which means they have more flexibility on their build to mod for duration. By the way, Caliban's armor strip is permanent. He would need a mod for duration on that. And Zaku also has armor strip as well that can be nearly permanent as well, as long as you keep gaze going. So way too much strength for that. Terrible passive. Maybe increase. So here's what I would do to Frost. Like I said, make it where his passive, like honestly, just cancel this augment. This augment does not need to exist. Make this his passive. Make it where I'm maybe potentially running a cold Kuva Nucor on Frost. Maybe I'm running the Epitaph on Frost. Maybe I'm running the Lens on Frost. If we ever get a Tenet Lens, it'd be sweet. Make it where he is actually getting a big impact from enemies being frozen in the area, or just cold procced in the area. Because right now, all Frost does is he slows enemies down, which is actually counterproductive for what you're trying to do in this game, which is kill enemies as fast as possible. So, of course, the best way to do this would be like, yeah, full Frost rework, make him have ice armor, make him have an ice scythe, make him turn to a toboggan or some kind of like sled thing. Yeah, let's do that for Frost. That's not happening, okay? That's not happening. They said they're only going to rework frames that make money off of it. Like I said, I think they could make money off of Frost. And of course, he still does have his niche of being very good at interception missions. I still do use Frost for interception missions in the Steel Path solo, just because you can have lots of ice bubbles up, and that's pretty good. But he needs some help. He needs some help. This is not the way to do it. DE, I don't know if DE thinks this is enough or something. Like, the fact they even made this means they're aware of Frost needing some help. Keep in mind, this is also not an ability. This is not an ability augment. This is a Frost augment. So it's basically a new passive for him. This is not it, because the enemies, the situation where enemies are fully frozen and not already dead are very few and far between. Like I said, his 4 does give full armor strip with 250% strength. If an enemy is fully armor stripped, do you really need to do 200% more crit damage against them? Probably not, honestly. Also remember, the mod does not scale with power strength, so that 200, That's just all you get. And it's not additive, so it's not like, oh yeah, plus 200% crit chance. My Brahma has 300% crit chance now. No, it's going to be like basically a plus crit chance mod. So your Brahma will be getting probably like, 30 or 40% extra crit chance, if that. So that's what I do to change Frost. Let me know how you guys feel about it. If you like this idea, honestly, post this video on the feedback forums that I can't see because I don't have access to the public test cluster. Or just post it on Reddit or something, because I think this idea is really good. Because cold procs are underutilized. They're basically just used to slow down Demoliths and like Acolytes. But this could be a step in the right direction. Ideally, we'd get more than this. But I'm just trying to be a realist here. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you later. We'll see if I can stomach playing Yareli later today to talk about that augment. But that ain't looking too good. But then again, D probably doesn't even remember that Yareli exists in the first place. So, whatever. See you guys later. Take it easy. Peace.